So good morning and welcome to PreStart. My name is David Nellums and I'm the Vice President of Innovation of the Don Ryan Center for Innovation. And we call it the DRCI. So the DRCI is the Economic Development Department of the town of Bluffton, which means I work for the town, which means I work for you. And all that really means is on this beautiful Tuesday morning in Bluffton, that I'm from the government and I'm here to help you, okay? So we're going to spend the next 30 to 45 minutes or so talking about things you need to consider if you want to start your own business. Now, if that's where you are, you probably have a lot of questions. Well, I'm going to hit some high points and give you a lot of information in a short period of time. And you can take it from me. I started 4 different companies. Some have done very well, some have not done so well. One did not do a thing but frustrate me and think I was a terrible business person and a failure. But for the most part, they all worked out well. And I can tell you firsthand that there are no limits on who can become a great entrepreneur. It's not something you have to be born with. You don't necessarily need a college degree. You don't have to be the smartest person in the room. You don't need a bunch of money in the bank account or even business experience to start something that could become a success. However, and here's the important thing, if you remember nothing else, here's the important thing that I've seen over 200 different companies, that the one thing that really makes a big difference is, however, you do need a strong plan and the drive, and here's the big word, the discipline to see it through. It's very, very hard to start a business sometimes, or very, very hard to start a business. That's why most people don't do it. It's easier to work for somebody else. I'm going to give you some tough love this morning when we talk about this. It's easy not to do this because it's so tough. And there will be times, I can tell you from experience, where you think this is the dumbest thing I have ever done to start a business. And there are other times when you think this is the greatest thing I've ever done. And it goes like this. It's just highs and lows. But all in all, it's a great experience. But you have to have a strong plan, the drive, and the discipline to see it through. Okay. Let's get my screen going here to the next. All right, you guys see the agenda now? Okay, so what I'm going to do is give you a quick introduction to the DRCI, the Don Ryan Center. We're going to talk about yourself a little bit, and we're going to talk about various things as it relates to business. So a little bit of the agenda here. All right. Now, the Don Ryan Center began in 2012 as a partnership between the town of Bluffton and Clemson. Now, Clemson had the idea to put business incubators around the state of South Carolina. And the town of Bluffton was the first city to buy into that vision. Now, when we started, all we did was startup companies. That's all we did. It was an invitation-only program. And we would work with the 6 to 9 companies at most, kind of help them with everything they needed to get going. Everything with the exception of funding. Now, this is important. We do not provide funding. Everybody thinks, well, you guys have all the money. No, we're the town. We don't have any money, but we can hook you up with different funding sources or different funding resources. So we don't provide funding, but we can provide resources that can provide funding. Now, we have all types of programs nowadays. Some are free and some require a fee, but at our core is our incubation program called Startup, and I'll mention that in a moment. Startup is the one that has the most traction. So a few key performance indicators on what we've done since we started in 2012. Created a lot of businesses that have created a lot of sales and payroll here in Bluffton and Beaufort County. And it's important to know, again, as I give you some context, that we're not just Bluffton only. We work with Bluffton, Hilton Head, Port Royal, Hardeeville, Beaufort County, Jasper County, because Bluffton Town Council realizes what is good for the region is good for Bluffton. So we don't have restrictions on, oh, well, you don't live in Bluffton, you can't work with us. That's not true. You can work for you could live in Hilton Head and work for a business in Bluffton. So it's all close together. All right. One or two more slides about the Don Ryan Center. So we divide our offerings up into three basic categories. Programs are the actual work we do with the individuals and the companies. So at the top there, resiliency is a free program that is limited to 1 or 2 interactions. Maybe a phone call. It's a free program that, you need a little bit of help, a little bit of advice. We can talk to you, or we can maybe assign you a mentor that can help you get some questions answered. The next level is startup, and that is our core program that requires a monthly fee. The program usually lasts about 12 months, and it's fairly intense. You meet the same time every other week at the same pace, same time with your team. Beyond startup is a program called growth, and that's for companies that are already cash flow positive. They're trying to grow to the next level, and it's an intensive program that can last a few months or much longer. So those are the programs. The next thing we have is membership. Now, the membership program is free. It's free to everyone. So I would encourage you to sign up to be a member of the Don Ryan Center. You can do that today. As a member, you have access to all types of resources, events, access to our facility at the hub, and other opportunities. And the last portion of our kind of tiered element is our mentorship program. It's a critical portion of how we can help so many companies. Right now, we have 14 companies in programs right now. And we have more than 56 mentors that work with all of these clients, from resiliency all the way over to growth. So if you're interested in becoming a mentor or know someone that might be interested, please let us know. And one last slide. The hub is where the Don Ryan Center is located. We are in Buckwalter Place. If you know where the new Kroger is, it's always fun to say, well, you got to go to the grocery store and then go around the left. But the hub is where the Don Ryan Center is located. We're very excited to have this building come online last year. We had a grand opening planned for March 2020. It's a great time for a grand opening in retrospect, right? But of course, COVID got in the way, and we had to postpone that. So we're open now for our program companies and our mentors and a few special events. And we do plan to open for our general membership in the very near future. So this big, beautiful building you see with the rising arched roof and the 2-story building, that's not us. We're the little building on the right, the smaller building. But when you get here, you can see that they're actually building this large building on that rendering right there. So, all right, just a little context about the Don Ryan Center, the hub, and the programs and what we do. Let's talk about you, all right? Now let me make my slide go to the next slide. All right. So let's start with the most basic question. Why do you want to start a business? And I want you to use this question to kind of guide what type of business you want to start. For example, some people just want extra money and they can just do a little side hustle, something part-time, evenings, weekends, that type of thing. But if you want more freedom, maybe it's time to leave the 9-to-5 job and start something new. And we're seeing a lot of that right now. Any economic turmoil, whether it's the housing crisis in 2008, it's COVID right now, if it was the NASDAQ melting down in 2000 and everything, the stock market bubble, all those turmoils create times where people decide, I want to do my own thing. So maybe that's where you are right now. So once you have the reason why you want to do this, you need to start asking yourself more questions to help you figure out what type of business you should start and if you have what it takes. Now, I'm not big on reading slides to people because I always hate it when I go to a presentation and people read me the slide. I mean, I can read the slide, give me something new. So I'm not going to read these slides to you for the most part, but I want you to think about what skills you have. What do you enjoy doing? What are you good at? You know, how much money can you spend? How much capital do you have? And what sort of lifestyle do you want? Being an entrepreneur, I've heard once somebody say that is a number of years doing things you necessarily don't want to do, to have a lot of years of doing things you want to do later on. And that's true. I've experienced that myself. But I want you to be honest with your answers. because this really bases the foundation for everything you need to know going forward. All right, so think about these questions, and I'm going to give you this presentation later on, so don't worry about, oh, I got to write this down. What are my skills? What are my passions? Just don't worry about that. And we'll have some Q&A at the end as well. All right. So despite all the beautiful pictures on Instagram, not everyone is meant to be an entrepreneur. Entrepreneurship can lead to a life of freedom and benefit the people a business serves, or it can be a nightmare for someone who isn't cut out to be an entrepreneur. It's not a one-size-fits-all choice for everyone. So I don't mean to be a downer here right off the bat, but again, like I said, we kind of practice tough love at Don Ryan Center. So here are some warning signs that you're not ready yet. Okay, here's my downer slide. I'm going to try to scare you away, and then we're going to talk positive stuff. But here's some warning signs that you're not ready. All right, you're not self-motivated. Okay, what I mean by that is entrepreneurship is pretty lonely at times, especially if it's just you when you start. But you only get out of it what you put into it. The ability to get things done working alone is very important. You have to be self-motivated to complete tasks, especially when you don't feel like it. And if you're the type of person who needs a boss telling you what's next, you're not ready. Okay. Number two, you haven't established the foundation. Before you consider leaving that steady paycheck, you should have a foundation established. And what I mean by that is a generous emergency fund. It all comes down to money sometimes, I hate to say, because you never know when things won't work out as planned. You should include a strong financial base. Your debt should not be out of control, and you should have enough to currently pay your bills comfortably. Income from an entrepreneurship can be sporadic. Sometimes you won't make money for a couple of months. Sometimes you won't make money for a couple of years. You decide you got to plow that back into the business or whatever. So you need to have a little financial cushion, and you want to prepare the best you can. Again, not trying to scare you all the way, just giving you some tough love right off the bat. You get flustered under pressure. I can tell you again, firsthand, all this stuff is firsthand, I can tell you. The stress of the business can be overwhelming. Like I said, you have these ups and down moments. You have to juggle running the business while dealing with the pressure from many angles. And if you crumble under pressure and stress, you should think twice about entrepreneurship. You haven't done enough research. Whatever business you want to start will require research. We're going to talk about that in a minute, and that's something a lot of people don't do. But before you take the first steps, you should become an expert on what it will take to be profitable. Now, luckily, the internet and social media provide an opportunity to do some efficient research on building a profitable business, so take advantage of that. You have no passion for the business you want to start. Now, passion isn't enough to build a business. You do hear that word passion a lot in entrepreneurship, but it's not enough. It's very helpful, believe me, but it's not enough. But you better believe it's an important part of the business. And there are times when your business is going to feel like a job, right? And your passion is what reminds you of what you're doing and what you have. It helps you move forward. If you don't have a passion for any one thing, you're not ready for entrepreneurship. Your growth strategy is what somebody else did. Here's what I mean by this. Growing a business can be fun, or it can frustrate you into quitting. When there's a lack of growth or research, people sometimes turn to copying what other people did. What worked for someone else probably won't work for you. So each of us is different, and so are our businesses. So we have to find what works for us when we're in the process. And if you're relying on copying somebody else, you're really not ready. So don't leave your day job if you're not ready for the uncertainty that comes with entrepreneurship and starting your own business. Personally, I love having a business and the freedom entrepreneurship provides, but I've recognized how hard it is to do this. Get honest with yourself about what you want from life, and get honest about whether this is right for you. And if you're ready, it takes time to get ready. It's kind of like having a child. When you first have a child, you're not ready to really have a child. And when you have a newborn, you're definitely not ready to have a toddler. And when you have a toddler, you're definitely not ready to have a teenager, but you grow with that child and you grow with that business. But it takes some time to get ready. That's fine. And it's better to build your dream on the side with a plan than turn that dream into a nightmare. Okay, so enough about, that's probably 4 minutes of like scaring you, trying to scare you away. And I don't mean to, but I kind of mean to if you're not ready. I just want to be honest with you. All right, so here's a question I've got. And normally this works great when I'm in a physical room with everybody, but we're just about to start doing physical meetings again. But I have a question for you to consider. This is a question I've asked hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people, and I very rarely get it right. Here's the question. What is the single necessary and sufficient condition to have a business? What is the one thing you need? What's the one thing? And I get answers like, oh, passion, which is good. I got to have a patent. I've got to have my business cards. I've got to have my book set up. I've got to have my legal entity set up. I've got to have, my product ready to go. It's got to be perfect. No. No, those are all good things. What is the one thing you need? A paying customer. That's so simple that sometimes people forget it. They go, oh, yeah, I knew that, David. I knew that. I was talking about all the other stuff, but a paying customer. The goal of a for-profit business is to get one paying customer and turn it to 2, and 2 to 4, 4 to 6, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16. You follow me? You've got to have someone to pay the bills. The other goal of a business is to start making money before you run out of your funding money, your seed money or whatever, to start making money before you run out of money. All right, so the one thing you need to help pull this off is a paying customer. Don't forget that. All right, now you may already have your business idea. This may be why you're in this program today. You think you got your idea, you're ready to go. Congratulations. But surprisingly, there are a number of people that want to do their own thing, but they don't know what they want to do. Luckily, there are a ton of brainstorming ideas and places to get a good idea. There's a great article on Entrepreneur. I suggest you search this, 8 ways to come up with a business idea. It helps people break down some potential ideas. So here are a few pointers from the article, trying to get ideas. First, ask yourself, what's next? So what technology or advancement is coming soon, and how will that change the business landscape as we know it? Can you get ahead of the curve? What's coming next? Fix something that bugs you. People would rather have less of a bad thing than people would rather have less of a bad thing than more of a good thing. So if your business is in a position can fix problems for your customers, they'll thank you for it. Here's something else, and I'm sure we've all experienced this. You're doing something one day and something just, whatever you're doing, and all of a sudden you go, I really hate it when this happens, or when this doesn't work like this, or this does this, or this doesn't do that. That's an opportunity. So often we just get frustrated and we pass it by, but sometimes those opportunities intersect with your skill set and go, well, I could fix that. There's a way for me to do that. Fix something that bugs you. Most of the products, most of the services, most of the things we purchase, consume, whatever, come across from somebody that said, I don't like how that works. I have a better way. All that stuff you see hanging in PetSmart or Walmart or whatever, most of those came from somebody going, oh, I've got a better idea. Fix something that bugs you. Apply your skills to an entirely new field. So many businesses or industries do things one way because that's the way they've always been done, right? You've heard that before. So in those cases, a fresh set of eyes from a new perspective can make all the difference. And lastly, use the better, cheaper, faster approach. Do you have a business idea that isn't completely new? If so, think about the current offers and focus on how you can create something better, cheaper, or faster. Go out and meet people, ask them questions, seek advice from other entrepreneurs and small business owners, research ideas online, and use whatever method makes the most sense to use, or use a better, cheaper, faster approach. All right, let me get a little sip of water, gang. All right, market research. This is something a lot of people don't do. I actually have a background in market research years and years and years ago, and most people don't do it. So when you do market research, you want to ask, is anyone else already doing what you want to start doing? If not, is there a good reason why? Now, let me give you a caveat and a warning sign, because sometimes people come to us and go, look, I've got this brand new idea. Nobody's doing it. I've got the market all to myself. Nobody's doing it. And some people would go, that's great, plenty of opportunity. But sometimes it's like, when we hear that, we're like, oh, well, does that mean everyone's tried to do it and it's not a good idea? Or have you really come up with something that no one's thought of? Sometimes it's that, but sometimes it's, yeah, people have tried it, and the reason that's not there is because it doesn't work. So you need to do some research, and there are lots of types of research. We're going to break them down into two areas. Primary research is when you gather data from analyzing current sales and effectiveness of current practices. It also takes competitors' plans into account and gives you information about the competition. So some questions you would ask, perhaps, here in the primary research: what do you like or dislike about current products? What are you suggesting for improvement of those products? What's the appropriate price for your products? That's where you do primary research. All right, you're doing research on the primary issue. And like I said, there's a lot to talk about on all these slides. This is just the tip of the iceberg. There's a whole bunch on market research. The next type of research is secondary research. And this is what most people do. This is what's called secondary data that's already out there. With primary research, you're actually asking questions. You're getting this research directly firsthand from your efforts. Secondary research is more like, well, I'll search the internet for it. I mean, I'm kind of, being a little facetious, but with secondary data, you can identify competitors. You can establish benchmarks, identify targets. Your segments are the people that fall into targeted demographics and lifestyles. They exhibit certain types of behavioral patterns, yada, 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 yada. You can do a lot of research on secondary research on the internet. That's where most people start. And then they go, oh, there's a market for this, I think. Let me do some primary research and figure that out. But here are some common mistakes people make when they do market research. First of all, they only use the secondary research. They only use the online resources. They just go to Google or whatever and search online and say, well, I figured it all out. I don't have to talk to anybody. Or here's the other one. They only talk to people they know. They talk to their friends. Hey, Bob, what do you think about this? Janice, what do you think about that? And your friends want to be nice for the most part. And well, I like it. I like it, David. It's a good idea. I think, would you buy it? Oh, yeah, probably. Yeah, well, you need to talk to people you don't know when you have an idea. You need to research and do research with people that don't know you and don't have a stake in the results, and don't worry about telling you that they think your idea is terrible, or that the phrase we use sometimes is that your baby's ugly. They're not afraid to call your baby ugly, because you need to know that in advance. And so that's why you don't just talk to people because people are going to tell you things they think you want to hear. Strangers don't do that for the most part. All right, so again, most people do not do market research. They get an idea, they go, well, we're going to go release this, and why didn't it work? Do market research. And get feedback. Let people interact with your product or service, not just your friends. Again, this is important, not just your friends. Let them interact with your product and service and see what their take on it is. This fresh set of eyes can help point out a problem you might have missed. And plus, these people will become maybe your first customers if you listen to their input and they like the product. So one of the easiest ways to utilize feedback is focus on something we call it's called the lean startup. It's a method of starting a business that we use here at the Don Ryan Center. I suggest you get more research on it, but the lean startup method is really, it came out of the tech industry. It's really a great way to get a business going. It involves three basic pillars: prototyping, experimenting, and pivoting, okay? So by pushing out a product and getting feedback and then adapting before you push out the next product, you can constantly improve and make sure you stay relevant. Just realize that some of the advice, solicited or not, will be good, and some of it won't be. That's why you should have a plan on how to receive and process your feedback. So here are some ways to handling feedback. And I've already listed them here. I wasn't going to do the reveal one at a time. First of all, stop. All right, when you get feedback, stop. Your brain's probably going to be excited when you receive feedback, and you might start racing to bad conclusions. You jump to the end. So stop, slow down, and take time to consider carefully what you've just heard. All right. Secondly, start by saying thank you. People that give you negative feedback won't expect you to thank them for doing it, but it will probably make them respect you and encourage them to continue to be honest in your future. And I'll be honest with you, some of the negative feedback, some of the stuff that hurt when I started different companies, when they told me my baby was ugly, although it hurt and I wanted to jump to a conclusion, I didn't stop. I realized over time that this negative feedback, this constructive criticism, if you will, was really better for me than some of the positive stuff, right? Thirdly, look for a grain of truth. If someone doesn't like the one idea, doesn't mean they hate everything that you've just said. Remember, these people are trying to help, and they might be just pointing out a similar problem or solution that you should look into further. Listen to these people. That's why you're doing this. That's the whole lean startup approach. Get something out there, make a prototype, get something out there and see what people think, iterate and do it again and do it again, do it again. Seek out patterns. If you keep hearing the same comments, it's time to start sitting up and taking notice. Listen with curiosity. Be willing to talk to these people. Enter a conversation where the customer has control, all right? Listen. You have 2 ears, you have 1 mouth, listen. And lastly, ask questions. Figure out why someone liked it or didn't like someone. How could you make it better? What would be a better solution? All right, so getting feedback. I know we're racing through this, gang. I'm sorry. Let's say I'll send this to you. We've got a little bit more to go, but the next step, the business model canvas. This happens a lot. People come in and say, well, I had this business idea, so I wrote a business plan. It's 45 pages. And it's great. I've obviously done a lot of research, but the problem with the traditional business plan when you first start is you don't know what you're doing. You don't know what works, what doesn't. It's all kind of hypothetical, kind of like that 3 to 5 year financial projection. You have no idea. You really don't. And now maybe the small parts of the plan, like here's how what my product is and how I'm going to make money and where I'm going to sell things. Yeah, you have a better idea there, but there's no reason for the most part to have this 45-page official business plan right off the bat. We use something called the business model canvas, which is, again, part of the lean startup method, and you can search it. But the BMC gives you the structure of a business plan without all the overhead of a full business plan. But it gives you the improvisation of kind of the back of the napkin sketch. So it's really a business plan on a page, all right? It's an outline to the larger plan that you'll be creating later. And it's used to get everything on one page. So you can start thinking about your startup, and you can see it here. Here are my customer segments. Here is my value proposition. Here's basically how I make money. Here's basically how I spend money. Here are the things I need. And it's not I did it once, here it is, David, I'm done. No, it's I do it right now. I start the business, I learn, I get feedback, I do research, I get the prototype out there, and then I iterate and I change my business model canvas. And what I'm doing, if you think about it, I'm very quickly changing over and over and over based on what the market is telling me. And once I find I'm having fewer and fewer changes, things start to solidify a little bit more, and that business model canvas doesn't change as much. And now you have a really concise outline for a real business plan that you will need at some point in the future, especially if you're trying to get funding from a bank or angel investors or friends and family. You're going to need a more formal business plan. But my point is, don't try to do that right off the bat. The most important thing is get the product or service out there as soon as you can. Find what works, change it, and get it out there again, and listen to your customers. So the business model canvas allows you that flexibility without having to bury yourself and write a 45-page business plan. Okay. All right. Now, sometimes people look at this and go, why'd you wait till almost the end of this to talk about setting up your business? Because this is all important stuff, but some people get really hung up on, oh, I got to get my federal tax ID and I've got to do this and I've got to do that. You know, my most successful business, which I started, I don't know, 1999, how many years ago that was. And I didn't have a business plan for 2 years. It took me about a year to get some of my permits and licenses. I can tell you now, not that I was breaking the law, but I was more focused on getting it was a software as a service, but I was more focused on getting the service out there and changing it and making sure it worked. So some of this stuff here is, while it's all very important, there is the right time to do it. And the right time to do it is not right when you start. It's pretty soon once you start doing business, but you don't have to do it right off the bat. But you do want to get the legal aspects out of the way fairly early before you really start making money, before you really start selling the final product. So you don't have to worry about someone taking your big idea, screwing you over in a partnership, or suing you, or for something you never saw coming. So here's a quick checklist of things you might want to shore up to include. So when I say business structure, I mean, are you a single proprietorship, an LLC, S corp, C corp? I can tell you most startups are LLCs. You can always go from an LLC to an S corp or a C corp or something like that. This is something you can ask your attorney or call us and we'll talk more about it in more detail, or we'll put you with a mentor if you really want to talk about, you know, the best way to get this set up. But all these things need to be done. Very important one down near the bottom, necessary bank account. What I mean by that is, let me pause. What I mean by that is, don't run your business out of your personal bank account. Okay. That is one of the things before you start making money and before you start spending money, you want to do is set up a separate business account, because you don't want to commingle the funds of personal and business. I see it all the time. It's a mess. People say, well, I didn't have my personal car, so the business paid for it, or I didn't have my business car for the, you know, I pay for it personally. Boy, that's easier. But when you start using business money to pay for personal things, and you start what we say commingling those accounts because it's easy, or you forget, or don't do that. Have a separate bank account and be, here's the word, disciplined about not commingling those things. Okay. Did I hit that one hard enough, gang? All right, funding. All right. There are a lot of F words in startups. All right. You follow me? There are a lot of F words in startups. Funding is one of those. And there are a ton of different ways to get the resources you need to start a business. And I'll talk about a couple of them here. I want you to take a look at your own resources, circumstances, and the state and life state to figure out what works best for you. The most popular by far is what we call bootstrapping, or paying for it yourself, funding the startup yourself. This usually takes longer. Bootstrapping your business takes longer, but the good part is that you control your own destiny and equity. And what I mean by that is how much you own of the company. When somebody else gives you money, I guess most people know this, for some of your business, they own a part of that business. And sometimes people will go, well, my business probably never be worth anything, and I need the money, so they have to do it, and sometimes it doesn't matter. Sometimes that could be an expensive mistake. I gave away a little bit of equity one time in one of my companies because I didn't think it was going to be worth anything. And I think it was a $50,000 investment. That $50,000 investment cost me $750,000 7 years later. At the time, I needed the $50,000. So, but equity is the most expensive thing you can give away. Just remember that. Pitch your needs to friends and family. It can be hard to separate business from personal relationships, but this is the second most popular way to start a business, is from friends and family. I read the other day that Jeff Bezos's parents gave him $50,000 5 times. In other words, they invested $250,000 in Amazon because they loved their son and they believed in him. And that, even though he sold a lot of it, that was worth about $30 billion. So, oh, mom and dad Bezos did okay, I guess. Wow. Request the small business grants. So do some research on business grants. You can go to grants.gov, grants.gov, which is a searchable online directory of more than, I think, like 1,000 federal grants. Now, I'll warn you, this is kind of a long process, but it doesn't cost you any equity to get a grant. Next, crowdfunding. I go back and forth on this one, but sometimes power is in the numbers, and a bunch of small investors can add up to something major. If you think your business might be fit for something like that, Kickstarter or Indiegogo or whatever, find the platform that most closely reflects what you're trying to achieve. They're not all the same. They're kind of like dating sites. There are all kinds of dating sites now. You can get people over 50, people over 60, people younger than 30, people that are farmers, people that love dogs. Kind of making some of this up, probably not. But there are crowdfunding sites just like that. Green initiatives, startups, whatever. There are all types of platforms. It's not just Indiegogo and Kickstarter. Apply to local angel investor groups. Online platforms such as Gust, G-U-S-T, all right, and AngelList, and local network can help you find a lot of potential investors who relate to your industry and your passion. There are a couple of angel groups in the Lowcountry, and so there's money out there. Join a startup incubator or accelerator. Hey, like the Don Ryan Center. These companies are designed to help you with your new startup business idea, get it to the next level. Most provide free resources. We provide some free resource. We have office facilities, we have consulting, like I said, we talked about resiliency, which is just some advice, and then we have the formal programs like Startup and Growth. We have networking opportunities. We're going to do pitch events from time to time. So an incubator, I assume you're all in Bluffton, so your incubator is the Don Ryan Center, but talk to us about that if you want to do something. Negotiate an advance from a strategic partner or customer. So if someone wants your product or service bad enough to pay for it, there's a chance they want it bad enough to fund it. So variations of this include maybe early licensing or white labeling things, or maybe they can, trade equity for services and give you a little bit of help, support me in this endeavor and I'll do this for you. So there are all types of ways to trade equity for services and get an advance from partners and things like that. And finally, the one I left for last, and I didn't even put venture capital in here. That's people think, well, I'll just get venture capital. That's so far up there, gang, that you don't need to talk about this at this level. Last one, and these aren't necessarily in order, but as I look at them, I can see that funding, bootstrapping is definitely the first one, and one of the last ones might be seek a bank loan or line of credit. Line of credit, maybe a HELOC on your house or something, second mortgage. Yeah, that's very traditional. But I'll be honest with you, it's very hard to get a traditional new business loan when you have no revenue. They're going to have some kind of collateral. But it's sometimes hard, but a good place to start, a good place to look at that is actually the SBA, the Small Business Administration. They are tasked to help businesses with loans and funding and things like that. So take a look at sba.gov, I think it is. They still have some money left, I believe. Okay. Now, I know we're blowing through this, gang. Develop your product or service. After all the work you've done in starting a business, it's going to feel awesome to actually see that idea come to life. But keep in mind, it takes a village to create a product. And what I mean by that, if you want to make an app and you're not an engineer, you've got to reach out to a tech person. If you need to mass produce an item, you've got to reach out to a manufacturer. When you're actually crafting the product, you should focus on two things: simplicity and quality. And your best option necessarily isn't to make the cheapest product, even if it lowers your manufacturing costs. But when you're ready to do product development outsource, here are some of the things you need to remember. Retain control of your product and learn constantly. What I mean by that is if you leave development up to someone else or another firm without supervision and staying really involved, you might not get the thing you envisioned. Implement checks and balances to reduce your risk. If you only hire one freelance engineer, there's a chance that no one else will be able to check that person's work. If you go for the freelance route, use multiple engineers so you don't have to take someone at their word. Hire specialists, not generalists. Get people who are awesome at the exact thing you want and not a jack of all trades. Don't put your eggs all in one basket. Make sure you don't lose all of your progress if one freelancer leaves or if one contract falls through. I've seen this so many times, and it's easy. I get it. I have this idea. I got Jonathan. He's my engineer. He's developed all this stuff, and it's great. It's fantastic. Jonathan's awesome. Well, what if Jonathan leaves? All right. Those things do happen. You've got to have a backup. Maybe it's not like Jonathan in reserve, but not right off the bat, but you need to keep that aware. You need to make sure that you own the code, you own, especially if it's software, you own the code and you have a copy of it at all times. But don't put all of your eggs in one basket. And manage product development to save money. So rates can vary for engineers depending on their specialties. So make sure you're not paying an overqualified engineer when you could get the same end result for a much lower price. All right, now we've done all this stuff. Now we're going to do some sales, okay? And there are a lot of different sales strategies, but no matter your product or industry, your business future is really going to depend on revenue on sales. Steve Jobs knew this. I mean, he was the one that was sitting in that garage in Cupertino making phone calls to when he started Apple day after day. But there are a ton of different sales strategies and techniques which you can employ. But here are some basic tenets to live by, right? Listen. I've said this before. You have 2 ears, 1 mouth. Listen. When you listen to your clients and customers, you find out what they want and need and how to make that happen. Ask for a commitment. Don't be too shy about asking for the next step. Don't be shy to ask for the close. Ask for the sale. Always be closing. ABC. Don't forget to ask for the sale. A lot of people don't do this. They talk about it and say, "This is a great product service. It's great. Don't you think? Don't you like it? Don't you love it?" And they leave it there. They don't go, "Wouldn't you like to buy it? Wouldn't you like to license it? Whatever." They never ask for the sale. They're too worried. They're too afraid to ask for the sale. You don't want to make the customer feel like you're forcing them, but you've got to ask for the sale. At the same time, don't be afraid of hearing no. You're going to hear no a lot. And again, this is what we talked about early on about, are you ready? I didn't say fear of rejection. Don't be worried about rejection, but you're gonna hear no a lot. Most people are too polite and they'll let you make your pitch, even if they have no interest in buying. But that's a problem too. But time is your most important resource. So if you hear no, move on. If you ask for the sale and they say no, move on. Don't just stay there forever. And make it a priority. Just obviously, making sales is the priority. When you get to this point, you've got to make the sales. You've got to make the phone calls. You've got to get out of your comfort zone. When I started my company, I did not like to speak in front of people. I did not like doing sales. I was more of a back-end coding type of guy. But I had to get out of my comfort zone and do sales. And market yourself. I mean, you're selling your business and you're selling yourself and your reputation. So, be honest with people, do the right thing. And most importantly, if you have a new customer, keep them. You all know it's a lot easier to keep a customer than it is to get a new one. If you have a new customer, retain them. All right. Finally, last slide. Growing your business. There are a million different ways to grow. You could acquire another business. You could start targeting a new market. You could expand your offering more, but no growth plan will matter if you don't have 2 key attributes that all growing companies have in common. One is focus on what you want to be, not where you are. We do this all the time. I mean, don't look, well, I'm only this size, I only have this much right now. No, you want to think about where you're going to be. Don't base decisions on where you are, based on where you want to become. One of the first things we ask clients is what type of company they want to become. Is it $1 million in sales? Is it 2 million, 5 million? You must have some objectives. These decisions you make as a $200,000 a year business are different than the ones that when it turns over to $10 million a year. And you think, well, I'm never going to get to that point. But the point is, don't get fixated on where you are right now. Operate like the business you want to be, right? Make sure you're ready and prepared for growth, because when business starts to scale, things begin to creak. The cracks begin to show if you haven't built a good foundation. The weakness can be exposed, and you can't always fix these things once the journey gets started. So you should Make sure you focused on the right things at the right time. And that's one of the things we do at the Don Ryan Center in our startup program is we teach you the things you need to know when you need to know them. And we do a lot of front end work where we make sure the foundation is solid. So when you grow this business later, you're in good shape. Thirdly, learn from competitors who have already grown. Think about how they've done it, how they've been successful. Fourth, protect your business values. Things can change when your business is growing and scaling up, and many things will compete for your time and attention. So be prepared for that. And also realize the importance of safeguarding your business values, which must not be allowed to suffer. Build a great team of employees. I can't tell you how important that is. Hire people smarter than you, okay? That's how you grow. And give them the ability to do the things they need to do, all right? You don't know everything. You don't know everything. You're really good in a couple areas, but you don't know everything. Hire smart people, give them responsibility. Have rules for your staff to follow. And I'm not talking about really strict regime that, but my business, had a manifesto of dealing with detailing the top things we believed. And so we had a strict kind of rules of what we believed and how we dealt with the customer. Figure out what that is for your staff, how the rules you need to follow. Access outside expertise when you need it. You don't know everything. And sometimes your staff doesn't know everything. So sometimes you have to go outside and get a consultant. Never compromise on quality. They both enable growth. If you have quality and consistency, they both enable growth. So there's no point growing your business if your products or customer service deteriorates, okay? Identify your barriers to growth because you're always growing. There's always something. I remember once somebody was starting the business and they said, when does this get easier? I said, well, I guess it gets easier, but there's always going to be challenges. There's always going to be things that are difficult that you're going to have to deal with. And so you need to identify those things in advance and try to head them off. And lastly, like we said, try to predict the future. Where's the next thing? Start up your businesses, grow, have the right products, the right processes, the right people, but it doesn't always guarantee you a smooth ride. Like I said, there's always going to be an issue. There is always an issue, okay? So that's something to keep in mind. Try to predict the future as much as you can. So that was 50 minutes or so, maybe 45 minutes. And we got a little bit more time. That's really, that's it. But the end is just the beginning, right? And I know I've blown through this stuff. There's so much information in there. I mean, we could turn this into a weekly class for a while and take each one of these slides and delve into it. But what the idea of PreStart here is at the Don Ryan Center is to give you a flavor and a taste of what's happening and to get you thinking about these things. And then we can dig into a little bit more. So with that being said, you have a question? I have an answer, I hope. If not, I can get you one. So if you have any questions, you can unmute your mics and I'll take any questions anybody has. And if I did such a great job and you don't have any questions, that's fine.
What about a franchise?
Franchises, Lee, are I was going to say they're pretty easy. Well, they're not easy, but what I mean by that is the great thing about a franchise is a lot of the work's done for you. You have a manual, you have an operations manual. There's a lot of guides to follow, and franchising is a very efficient, effective way to get into a business. What we were talking about today, really, I'm glad you brought it up, Lee. By the way, everyone, Lee's one of our mentors. What I'm talking about really is, or I have been talking about, is really kind of doing your own thing, not franchising, because franchising addresses a lot of these questions. So if you really want to do your own thing and you find a franchise you like and the fees seem reasonable and it looks like a good business for the area, definitely look into that. We can give you a little advice on that as well. Thank you, Lee. Anybody else? All right, well, gang, I've got all your email addresses from when you register, so I will email you this presentation if you like it. And if you have any questions further on about how we can help you, if you've got a business idea, if you're ready to start something and you would like to to talk with a mentor. I can get you in the resiliency program. That's free. If you're a little more committed, you've got a bigger plan or a bigger goals, I should say, and you want to apply to the startup program, let me know. We can talk and show you how that works as well. There's a whole process for startup. So anyway, I'm getting some comments. Thanks for presenting. All right. So thanks for everything. Nancy says, what about donating your services to develop your product? Yeah, I mean, that works, Nancy. Anything you can do to keep the cost down. I need to know your specific situation you're talking about, but I can definitely see areas where that would work and be beneficial. So anything you can help do to get that product developed more efficiently as possible and cost effective is something you should do. The thing is, when you start your business, there are a lot of guidelines and rules and things you should follow, but there's always open for interpretation. There are always ways to do it. Like they said, there's multiple ways to skin a cat, but there's always ways to do it. So whatever seems to work, as long as it's ethical and honest and moral, yeah, absolutely. So gang, it's 5 till 9. Get you right before you go to your 9 to 5 job or whatever